And here we go.
Here we are.
First one of 2021.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much. Everyone, I'm just going to introduce our guest today, Mr. Sam Rusty Russell.
It's me.
Do you want to let everyone know what you do?
All sorts of things, but mostly I keep pretty busy in the firearms industry.
Yes.
So I got a couple of online stores, and that's sort of my main job. And then I also run a national series for competition shooting. And I think we got a little bit of other projects. Always got projects on. Same as you. Always got projects on, mate. So,
but yours is fun because it's guns and firearms. It's
yours
good
is
stuff.
Beards and alcohol. It's
yeah.
It's not that terrible either.
I still like to incorporate that in my playtime as well. So, Rusty and I met. He actually invited me onto his podcast last year, like just after. It's probably like 2 months. Forward from last year.
It would have been I think we kicked that off in April so last year.
When the world was in lockdown.
Pretty much.
Literally this time last year, the world was in lockdown. I just got off the plane from Amsterdam and missed quarantine, and we were running around like crazy men trying to relocate and make germ killer for the Queensland hospitals.
That's right. I think we were due to have a competition. Our first competition for the year would have been this appropriate weekend last year.
Yep.
And we had to bail on it. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Which is crazy.
And now there's a little spike up in Brisbane.
Oh yeah, so I've come here.
Flew into the epicenter of the
straight. Literally, I'm sitting on the phone checking like the SA Health advice to see whether or not I can get back into the state, whether I get off the plane or stay. And here we are. So
well, hopefully you can get back in.
Yeah,
it's getting a bit ridiculous now. The vaccines are rolling out, so
yeah. I think I'm due for a couple of days of isolation. Maybe that's about it. Which is probably not terrible to be fair.
Well, yeah, last Easter, when everyone else was going away on holidays, I think we had 10 people and we were working 18-hour days.
Yeah, that's right, because Easter was your weekend.
It was the craziest weekend I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
So it feels surreal that we're 1 year on and it's just still around.
Still here, still busy.
So tell us about PRS and what got you into it, because it's a fucking cool sport.
Yeah. It is rad. It's the Precision Rifle Series is what PRS stands for, and so it's a series this year of 9 shooting competitions held around the country, in various states, and people travel around. It's a big sort of touring series, and they collect points over the year and then end up at a finale. And normally they would then go off internationally and shoot, but not likely going to happen this year, I don't think. Yep. So that's the plan. And the style of shooting is very diverse, which is the big attraction to it. So
because there's 3-gun, which is huge in America.
Yeah.
Which do you want to explain that to our listeners, because not many people know it in Australia.
Yeah, I'll see how I go.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure 3-gun you use pistol, shotgun, and rifle, but your rifle stuff is generally sort of couple 100 meters, not massive distances, and it's very speed orientated.
All semi-automatics in America.
Yeah, all semi-auto stuff, and your targets are generous in terms of size, but you got to hit. So that's my very limited understanding of 3-gun.
I think probably the best one to explain it is when what's his name from The Matrix.
Keanu Reeves,
when he was training, that's 3-gun.
Oh, for John Wick.
Yeah, for John Wick. Sorry, yeah. I just got goosebumps. That's a badass movie.
I'll remember that. Yeah. Just be like walking around and be like, hey,
John Wick. No,
so
that training, there's that famous video that he's doing 3-gun for. Yeah, that's what 3-gun is.
Taron Tactical. Yeah, so that is. And then so our sort of stuff is just the rifles, but the distances extend out. So we don't have any particular limit on distance. This year we should be having a comp going out to about 1,200, 1,300 meters.
Wow.
In the US, they will not uncommonly do a mile.
1.6K.
Beyond. Yeah.
So and that's surreal. Like, because it's essentially, it's almost 3-gun in the way that you're having to take different positions to make your shots, but it's like sniper 3-gun.
I guess so.
That's how I.
It's long range. It's a little bit slower, but it'll be varied. So like if you've got a mile target, you're probably not moving positions.
Yeah.
You're probably sitting on your belly shooting, and it's a real challenge of being able to connect with the target at that distance. Whereas for your other stages, you might be moving along. You might have shoot off a desk and then a chair or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And so that gives you lots of diversity, and that's the reason it's popular, because you never quite know what you're up for. Your matches are designed by a match director.
Yep.
And so they will write a course of fire for you to shoot that'll be different from match to match.
Yeah.
And I think that rather than a lot of shooting competitions where you go and you shoot the exact same thing every week in, week out, which some guys love because they love to perfect.
Yeah. They're the type A repetition personalities.
Yeah, and whereas you get guys who just want diversity and versatility, and a lot of guys come from a hunting background or a military background. They're used to sort of unknowns and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
well, it's probably more realistic in the real world. It's very.
It's closer. It's closer to a to a hunting scenario.
Yeah,
yeah, where you might get a small amount of time to target. Yes, it's obviously it's a simulation of it. It's not a perfect.
Yes,
but it's it's practical. It's good fun.
Practical shooting. That's what I'd categorize it.
Exactly.
And with the sport as well. So they're different categories based on caliber. They're like the go-to rifles that everyone's got. If you don't have that one, you're like just shit because you don't.
Well,
it all comes down to the shooter ultimately.
Yeah, exactly right. I was going to make that point. The person. The same with sort of any sport or almost anything. It's the operator who knows what they're doing. If they know what they're doing, they can make almost anything work for them. Obviously, the gear is an important part, and it looks the best. So you want sexy looking gear.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to the person knowing how to drive that. Some guys will spend big money on gear so that they don't have that as a question mark in their mind, which makes sense.
Okay.
So they might throw 10 grand at a gun. And they know that the gun is not going to ever be in question.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
them.
It's all them.
Yeah.
Some guys will do really well with a gun that is perhaps letting them down. And you see them change the gun. Now that they're squared away all their skills, they change the gun out and they jump up in the in the rankings because the equipment was holding them back. Now that's rarer to see. But they're the type of guys who just spend time practicing.
And are you finding most of the competitors at the moment, they are hunters or ex-military, or they all walks of life, men
everything.
and women?
Yeah, absolutely everything. And from guys who have never hunted, no military background, but just love that competition style and the camaraderie. And it's because it's a fairly young new sport. You get a lot of people who. There's a real passion for it. There's a real energy. There's a lot of positivity around it, and people are just keen to help others get involved.
Are you finding, because when people, particularly in Australia, I find you say the word firearm or gun, and people shit themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Are you finding because even when I was on the podcast, your podcast, and I went into that little chat room after, and there were girls and guys in that room.
Yep.
Some of them had been to one PRS event, just watching, and there was a really unusual friendliness about that group.
Yep.
And it was very welcoming. Like, I had no idea, and pretty much after your podcast, I went out and bought the Lithgow.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't remember what it was. I got that rifle.
Yep.
It sat in my safe. I haven't even put the muzzle brake on it. I have literally not put a round through it in the 6.5 Creedmoor. So
might have to fix that soon.
Yes, I would love to, because I said I wanted to come, and that's why I bought it to actually do an event.
Go and shoot.
Yeah. So, but are you finding that there's that stigma surrounding the firearms sport again? Because we've got some of the best shooters in the world, like at Olympic level.
We do. Yeah. That stigma is always going to be there. I have a very skewed view of it because the people I speak to on a daily basis are all contacting me because I'm involved with guns. So,
yes.
So I don't see so much of it. And also, I don't think I own a shirt that doesn't have something related to guns. I don't think, so I'm very wrapped up in it. So it's difficult for me to get too much of an outsider view. And also I don't, I'm always happy to talk about it, but I don't particularly, not really interested in discussing it with someone who's completely against it and has no interest in actually developing their understanding. But I get a lot of questions from people who aren't shooters and who haven't been around it that are genuine curious about.
I think that most people are. You have the occasional fuckwit who just has no idea, and you can't even reasonably talk to them.
And just wants to argue, and that's
fine. They're going to lose every day of the week.
Yeah, that's the way.
That's why we have guns.
Yeah, and so you get your genuine question, and more than happy. I love talking to those people because they, if nothing else, if they can have an understanding of why we love it as a sport and why we enjoy it, that's cool. That's awesome. They don't ever have to try it or anything. But if they can see that, this is actually a legitimate fun pastime, and usually if they're willing to get out to a range and have a shoot with the right people who are safe and who are passionate about what they're doing, they are very quickly like, oh, maybe I'll get into this.
So why do you love it? Like, how did you fall in love with the sport?
I started shooting when I was about 5 or 6 with my dad.
Yeah.
And which is, a pretty common story. You go out to a farm, dad's got some friends on farms. You go out there with 22 and you pop targets off. And then when I was 21, I shot sort of on and off a little bit, but hadn't probably shot, throughout high school.
And you're in South Australia as well. So what type of stuff did you hunt down in South Australia?
That would have been rabbits.
Yeah,
when I was real young, it was rabbits,
yep.
and they were big problems back then.
Yeah,
they're not a small problem now. They're still a problem, but not as bad as it was then.
Yeah. And
then went over to the UK in 2001.
Cool.
And we stayed on a property, and literally outside the property, we were able to we would stop dinner. We'd get up from the table like this and just be like, "Hang on one moment," out the window and knock off a rabbit.
No way.
And so.
My God.
And from there, I started shooting shotgun on that trip. This first time I shot a shotgun.
It's amazing.
And really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Came
side
back.
by side or over under?
That was... that's a good question then.
Yeah. Was it Purdy?
It was not Purdy. It was very pretty, but it wasn't Purdy.
Yeah. For those who are listening, Purdy is one of the most renowned shotguns ever made in the world.
And expensive.
They can be like $130,000 per gun.
130,000 pounds.
Pounds, sorry, pounds.
could be. Yeah, easily. So they are very expensive. But I came back and really started getting into clay shooting.
Yep.
Like I bought clay target
throwers
and all that sort of gear and got quite good at that. Have you done that?
Yeah. I went. That actually got me moving towards the path of duck hunting.
Oh yeah.
And so we were on a mate's property probably a year and a half ago. And had an afternoon shooting clays off his balcony on his property, and then we went for a duck hunt with his son. And again, this is the beauty of it. We went for a duck hunt, had this amazing adventure for 3 hours.
Yep.
Got 4 ducks.
Yep.
Cooked them up that night.
Yep.
And we're chatting about the day's event. It's just so amazing to be able to appreciate what you've hunted as well and enjoy it, because you don't waste anything that you really do hunt.
Yeah.
But yeah, shotgunning, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's something special about it.
There is. And so that's how I kicked off, and I was going to take it pretty seriously, and then I think I started working in a different job for a scope manufacturer, and the rifles started becoming really interesting.
Yeah, okay. Who did you work for?
Night Force.
Yeah, amazing scope.
Yeah, and so the interest in rifles, to be able to hit a target a long way away. I mean, they make sort of properly long range type scopes, and so
that was the SEALs industry standard for a while.
It was.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're up to now. Yeah,
Vortex is killing at the moment.
Vortex doing. There is every day I get a new email about a new scope brand that's out. It's very easy to put a new logo on anything. So everyone is starting an optics brand.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that's it's really really common. But yeah, it was they're really going to the rifle side of things, and I still have a couple of shotguns and still from time to time get them out, but I'm not very good at it anymore.
It's just about the fun.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we do hip shots and upside down, over the head, through the legs, all that sort of stuff.
What, like full trick shots?
Yeah, full trick shots on the clays. That's because we didn't.
I was not that good.
We missed heaps of them. I didn't say we hit them. We just tried them, but we didn't because we didn't go to clubs so much. We just did it on mates' properties. So we would you'd try sort of anything, and it was good fun.
That's cool.
Good fun, the trick shots, but I haven't done it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, should get back into them one day.
So when did you turn your passion of shooting into a business?
So 2008 I started at a gun shop. Just part-time, just learn the ropes and learning all the terminology and all that sort of gear, and taking it a bit from a interest and a hobby to actually being knowledgeable on it. Did that for a number of years, on and off, nearly a decade with that.
Yeah, wow.
And then I'm going to get the dates wrong, but somewhere around 2013, I reckon we did a photo shoot to start the website, that sort of thing. And
for PSR or for Impact?
No, this is neither. This is going back in the history. And so working in the gun shop, I kept having people coming in and they'd be asking questions, and they'd walk in and they'd be like, oh, I want to get a big gun, a 300 Win Mag, right, as their first gun. Now, for those who are not familiar with that, that's a pretty hefty gun. That's a gun that punches you in the shoulder real hard.
Yep.
And it's
scary.
It's not a good gun to shoot for your first gun.
No.
at all.
It creates bad habits where you're flinching because of the impact.
Yeah, and especially because guys are getting them in hunting rifles, which is really light, so they feel and you would see that so often people would come back with it like 3 months later and be like, oh, I just want to trade this in.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. More than once that happened.
Oh my God.
And so, and that's not a really positive experience. So I was like, like you'd be talking to these guys trying to help them out, and you're like, you know what? If I could take you shooting for like 2 hours or 3 hours or a day or something like that, you would learn from the mistakes I've made for the last 14 years, and you would start far further down the path, so you'd have a much more enjoyable solution. So I went from thinking I wish I could do that to I'm going to do that, and we started running classes.
Awesome.
And so these were generalized classes. These are like how to shoot, the fundamentals of shooting and trigger control and breathing and all that sort of gear, as well as some sensible stuff about like selection of calibers. And so we'd have an array of guns there that they could try and feel and test out, and we'd show them what a muzzle brake would do. We'd show them what a heavy gun was like compared to a lighter gun, all this sort of thing. We'd have like the 223s, we had 5 different brands of guns, so they could try them all before they put money down. And we didn't care because we didn't sell guns. We just, you try and see what experience you get. So that was how we started. And
that's amazing as well, because I remember when I got my firearm, because I lived and did college in America, and that's when I fell in love with firearms over there.
Yeah.
When I got back to Australia, all my boys went out to get our license, and only 2 of us actually did do all the paperwork to get it. Yeah. And I think I'm the only one who's still got their license. Yeah, so, right. But the whole thing with learning on the job, like doing hunting, I had no idea. So I ended up joining up with the best club I got the most value from was GHAA, which is an amazing Australian hunting club.
Yep.
And so they have access to all these private properties, and before you're allowed to go out and hunt on them, there's like a 3-day proper training course that's run by all the committee members, and everyone who has a firearm in Australia should have to do a fucking course like this, because it changed all of my bad habits that I learned. You're hanging out with people who've been hunting for like 30 years or shooting for 30 years, and you just learn such great habits. I would go out into other like farmers' properties now, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to, like, it's dangerous. Yeah. The bad habits they picked up, because they were never taught. They just did their own stuff. So when you had those fast-tracked learnings, you just felt so much, like even down to navigation work, because you're on these big properties, you can get lost.
Yes, you can.
And
yes, you can. As I have been several times.
So tell us about that story.
Oh, we were on a property in New South Wales.
Yeah.
And we were travelling south, and it was probably 250,000 acres, so
big property. Yep.
And we were after some goats, and we were like, all right, these 2 goats, we're going to grab them, and we're going to dress them back and take the meat back, right? So this was the end of the night. It was probably about 1 a.m. or so.
Yep.
So we downed these 2 goats, put them in the back of the ute, and to get to these goats, we'd sort of meandered off the track a little bit. And so we'd cut across, and we thought we found the track that we were on.
Yep.
We didn't. We were on a different track. So this track took us through a gate, and we're like, all right, cool. We know this track loops around. So we went through the gate, closed the gate behind us, kept an eye on this track, and about 400 metres down this track, the track disappeared. And we're like, oh, it must be overgrown or something like that. Can't be too far away. Follow the lay of the land. No, okay. That's not brilliant. All right, let's go back around. We'll pick it back up behind us. So we turned around.
Were you using GPS, or did you have maps?
We had no signals at all.
Oh my God.
At this point. So and no map. Like this is a number of years ago. So that wasn't quite a thing.
Yeah.
And so we turned around to find the track and came to a fence, and we're like, no track here. All right. Well, we know that north is Broken Hill, and west was the highway.
Oh my God.
Right. So north was where we were
on 250,000 acres.
250,000 acres. And so we're like, all right, well, we either go north or we go west. And that is the only 2 options. So we started driving. And so we were in my Hilux at the time, and we were taking it like we were in terrible, not good conditions to drive around in.
Yeah.
And I think we slowly sort of edged away, tried to get through, and then we came to this heading north and heading west was actually working really well. We were gaining some ground. Then we came to this like semicircle of trees. All right. And we're like, well, either way here, we're going to have to, like, we can't go north and we can't go. We've got to go back around. We're going to sort of go backwards somehow. And we're like, And all the boys in the car. There was 4 of us, including an American, one of the Night Force boys.
Yeah.
And we're in there. I'm like, I really don't want to give up any ground that we've worked so hard to get through. I'm like eyeing off the trees, and I'm looking at one particular tree, and I'm like, yeah, I reckon that's the one. I went, hold on, boys. Floored it, smacked into the tree. The tree just fell over. It was I'd managed to pick the dead one, which is what I was aiming for, and the tree went bang, hit the deck, and we jumped out, moved it out the way, and drove on through the blockade of trees.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it was like a full gate of trees.
It was a full, like there's no way through. And I saw one that just looked completely dead compared to all the rest. I went, all right, I reckon we had a sizable bull bar on the front, and we thought, let's give that one a crack. And we did. So we we covered, I think it took us like 4 hours to go 5Ks.
Oh, my God.
And we finally got to this road. And I think the boys ran out and they're kissing the road like the Pope.
It's pretty scary when you get lost.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have GPS back then and all that sort of thing. I think after that I went out and got some sort of system because I'm like, this could have gone poorly.
It's bad. I had a GPS, one of the same ones, the wristwatch ones that all the military boys used, and it was a godsend.
Yeah.
Even to the point where on that course they were showing you like the side that moss grows on trees. Mm-hmm. To be able to find out what direction you're walking if you're going through thick scrub and all those little things, because you get lost out there in the middle of fucking nowhere. It turns out to be bad.
It can go south real quick.
Very bad, especially if you're injured.
Yeah, we were fortunate. We were all in good condition. Apart from being grumpy as 5 a.m. That's all right.
You just slept well.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we slept well for like the 3 hours we could sleep for. Yeah.
So to get into PRS, what do you need to get started?
A rifle or a club gun.
Yeah.
And so look, where we started doing those training things, and then that morphed into it'd be the long range stuff. We were shooting, but we probably weren't confident enough to teach. That's how we felt. Just that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You're like, I can hit the targets regularly at 1,000 meters plus, but I'm just not sure like if I can tell someone how to do that.
Yeah, and then some ex-military dude comes out and starts banging stuff at 1.6K.
And so we went, all right, well, but we kept asking, kept having customers who had done the general training with us, like, how we want to learn it. We want to learn it. And like, all right. So I took a mate of mine, a farmer, right? So he could shoot. He was safe, but much more than about 200 meters, he had no chance. So I took him away for a weekend, and I spent, I'm like, all right, here's what I would teach. Here's how I'd do it. And third shot in, he was smacking 1,000 consistently. I'm like, all right. It gave me some confidence to go, all right, maybe we can do this. So we sort of spent a bit of time just clarifying the curriculum.
Yep.
Say that this early in the morning.
Curriculum.
And we headed off and did our first course with a couple of guys who are now still pretty sort of solid guys in the scene.
Did you have to become an RTA to do that, or?
Because there was no formal recognition. It was just skills, just teaching people stuff that they needed to know. So we did that, and then we started doing the long range stuff, and then we're like, well, this is excellent, but a lot of people don't have any sort of way of playing that out. So we started doing like these informal competitions for guys to sort of benchmark themselves against it.
Yep.
And so we sort of had designed this comp, this sort of field-based comp, and then about 3 weeks before the first one was to happen, I got sent a YouTube link of this PRS thing in the US, and I'm like watching it, and they used to do these full videos of the whole weekend and show all the stuff. I'm just like, that is almost exactly what we were planning. Like, almost shot for shot, like very, these are virtually the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, rad, that's awesome. So I started watching heaps of them and like changed a few things, and went, got a few of their sort of ideas and bits and pieces around it, and went, okay, let's try this out. And so from there, after a very convoluted story, we ended up getting the rights to run it in Australia.
Cool.
And that's sort of where that all kicked off at that national level. But you asked about how to get started in it. Well, back then it was challenging because we could only really do it at this national level.
Yep.
The first year there was one club that we could run it with. And then the next year there was only 4. But now so that was 2017 was the first match.
Yep.
And now 2021 there are 9, 10, 11, 12 clubs starting to be able to run this sort of stuff on a regular basis. So it's becoming a lot easier for someone like you to just go, right, I want to get involved, go to a club, shoot it, and shoot it at that club level, which is a really good entry level. And then because the national level matches as that sort of shooter skill has gone, it's progressed up, and it's become a bit more higher pressure. Still really friendly and really good fun.
It's just competitive,
but there is a competitive nature. There's a sizable prize table. There's all this sort of thing as well. So it's not that it's like people are still like, we've got the first match in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks.
Well, where's that?
Monado in SA.
Cool.
And I hope I'm not in quarantine for it. But anyway, that's another point.
I hope so as well.
But we still have a good 20 people shooting it as their first one.
Yeah.
So which is fantastic to see. So it's still approachable for a new person to shoot, but it's going to be, they're going to miss more than perhaps if they shot a club match. But really excited to have that club sort of network starting to grow, and it'll get to 20, 30, 40 clubs over the next couple of years. But we started with, effectively, there was one in Darwin who...
Wow. So Darwin kicked it off, eh?
Darwin were running in parallel, like their club level sort of stuff. So which is good, and they're still one of the most experienced clubs around.
Yep.
And we started a club in SA, and that's now become the biggest club of this style. But I guess we originated in SA, so that's not surprising. We've got a big depth of shooters there.
And are they, like, how many clubs in each state at the moment that are on board with this stuff?
It would vary. So, like, there's none in New South Wales.
Really? Well, they probably can't get guns because they look too tactical.
Way to bring up a sore point. New South Wales is a challenge. There is one club that's doing some centerfire stuff on an occasional basis, and there is rimfire stuff happening a little bit, but there's a club in ACT that's kicked off doing it. There's a couple in Queensland that are running as well, a couple in Victoria. Tasmania is about to kick off as well.
Amazing.
So, there's all sorts of stuff like floating around, but if we have this chat another 2 years, there will be a fair explosion of it.
That's exciting.
There's agreements and bits and pieces that have just been in the works for like 4 years, 5 years, that are hopefully coming to fruition in the coming months, and they will open the pathway for a lot more to be much easier. But
so on a world stage, are we doing everything that's up to the world spec? Because that's what, like, again, we can't do 3-gun in Australia because we can't be approved for semi-automatic shotguns or rifles for sports, which is fucking ridiculous. But is it the same with PSR?
So just to clarify, PRS is another discipline, which is confusing.
Yes. What's the difference between them?
They're good guys as well. Now I'm going to get it wrong. Precision rifle series and the precision service rifle. So the service rifle guys shoot a much closer match to a service competition, to a military competition, where you will have teams of 2. You will sit at like the same distance, so everyone will be at 400 meters, and then everyone moves to 600 meters. And they shoot paper targets. You have multiple shooters at one time. Really good, excellent comp. They use similar guns to us. And they're a bunch of rad guys. A lot of guys do a crossover. A lot of guys shoot both. Whereas the PRS guys have a lot more movement. We will all shoot from the one position, but the targets will be at different positions, and we shoot steel generally. So you get that ding. Very satisfying ding at the end of your shot, or you get nothing. You get nothing.
I was watching all the videos before I decided I wanted to get into it, and the callers, they're like, don't say it. If you miss, there's nothing.
You got nothing.
But if you hit it, it's the nice ding, and then it's hit.
Impact.
Oh, impact. Yes,
that's the words. Well, I remember you said because you were on that. You're on the. So we started a live show during COVID. And you came on board that, and then afterwards we had that little group chat with anyone who wants to hang out. I think we showed you a 42-second video, and I think about 19 seconds in, you're like, sign me up. I'm in.
It is like legitimately. It looked like a rad sport, and it's something I wanted to get involved with. So
it'll happen, mate.
100%. Just need to make some time. Haven't even been for a hunt almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
So
I'll be about the same on a hunt.
Because people don't understand it actually takes a long time to go hunting. Like I remember my first deer hunt, I walked for 23 hours, and we saw a group of deer way out of range, and they ran. And that was it. And I remember marching back. That was the full pack in case we got anything, pack it out, with a shotgun in case there was anything else in my scabbard. And then I had a long, heavy barrel varmint rifle, which was not the rifle of choice to walk around with that.
No.
And I remember I was sitting there with my hunting buddy at dinner table, and we passed out sitting up. And we woke up at like 2 a.m. in the morning. We're like, fuck it, let's keep going. And jump back in and try to get some foxes.
Yeah.
So it was ridiculous.
It can be mates who've gone over to the Victorian high country for a week and come back with stories.
Yeah, exactly right.
And to be fair, they loved it. They loved it. It made their passion for it even more significant.
It's an adventure.
And it is the week away with mates that is much more what you remember. And then they went the second year and got what they were after. Packed the freezers out and had an amazing story to tell.
So I don't think we wrapped up what we actually need to get into.
I'm not sure we wrapped anything up.
No. So precision rifle series. What do you need to do to get involved? Like what?
So at the national level, you a rifle with scope with ammo, and honestly, that
it doesn't matter about what caliber.
Start. Caliber, there's one restriction which is 30 cal maximum.
Okay.
Right, but most guys are shooting 6mm. 6.5 still fairly popular, particularly for the new guys.
Yes.
So 6.5mm Creedmoor is
that's all the rage at the moment.
Is all the rage particularly for new guys because you can get off-the-shelf factory rifles, factory ammo. You don't have to reload, all that sort of thing.
Yep.
As guys progress through the sport, they usually drop down to a 6mm, so a smaller diameter projectile.
Projectile.
And the reason for that is that recoil is such a factor in this sport because you mentioned before that no one tells you if you miss.
Yeah.
So if you don't see that shot and where it went, you
can't trace
make
it,
any correction on it. And so for this sort of stuff, you don't need energy to go down range. You just need to hit the target enough for it to move a little bit. And so the energy requirements is low, so you're trying to keep that recoil as low as you can. That's why you see a lot of heavy guns as well. And it's not because people are like, oh, but you're a wuss. You're worried about your shoulder.
Yeah,
it's got zero to do with felt recoil. It's all to do about where that gun is still
skipping.
pointing.
Yeah, because I love my 308s.
Yeah,
and then. Like my very first gun, my Remington 700, that thing loves 180 grains, but you cannot see.
You can't see.
You cannot see after that thing's been pulled.
Yeah.
So, and then that's why I went to the 6.5 Creedmoor because I was watching all the reviews on it, and there's no recoil at all. It's ridiculous.
It's
and even now,
light.
the military is like going across to it for the long ranges because you can still get effective, where a 308 was effective out to like 600, maybe 800 if you're like literally the best marksman in the world.
Yeah, I've put 308s out to 1.6.
1 but nowhere near as
not.
You've got to allow for like double the drop and stuff. When I was
they're not. I guess there's a switch point where they do have some benefit, but generally speaking, it's a lot easier to shoot a 6.5 Creedmoor out to those distances. It's there's some guys, particularly there's couple of YouTube channels around where they're doing some ridiculously long shots with some very tiny calibers. And it's very, very impressive. It's certainly all doable. Just repeatability is always the question. And so in a sport where you have to hit the targets to a count, repeatability is what you're looking for, and that low recoil, so you can get a second shot off really quickly.
Amazing.
Is pretty critical. So we all started out with 308s and 300 mags, and we've all wound down to 6mm.
With because in Australia at the moment, with the sport being in its infancy, where a lot of it's just at clubs, at standard ranges, and you're doing different scenarios and that. I know that in the US, I've seen some videos, and they're like on private properties, like up on top of ridges, and these beautiful surroundings, and they've got like 1.2, 1.6
stunning
K targets. Is that where it's going to move to? Because I think
I'd love for it to, but the private property factor is a real challenge there.
Yeah, like with insurance and stuff.
No, with approval.
Okay.
So all of our comps have to be on approved ranges, right, in this country. Otherwise, because we used to run private comps, and they actually changed laws in SA which impacted that, and so as soon as it becomes commercial, as soon as there's dollars changing hands, you can't run these matches for free. You've got there's all sorts of costs involved, and so as soon as it becomes commercial, depending on which state we're talking about, it becomes you have to be in approved range. And so there's at least one field range, like we call them field ranges, where you're a little bit more out in the field and shooting from various positions like that. that are around, but it's just slow access, and perhaps more will be built that way. It's just harder to get them approved. So,
so who dictates that? Is that legislation by?
Correct. Yeah, legislation in the various states.
Is it just for insurance reasons, so you can't get insurance on a property, or
it's not? No, it wouldn't be insurance. It'd be like fallout. So making sure things are templated accordingly.
Yeah. Wow.
So if a bullet goes, not through the normal process, it's still going to land in a safe manner and all those sort of things. So they've got to be templated accordingly.
Huh.
Wow. So if you get a big enough property and you've got the funds to spend the time doing it, you can get some cool things templated appropriately. But it's just a matter of, the sport, as you said, is very young.
Yeah.
And so those things will come. I mean, when we started, we were unlikely to get onto a range that was more than 500 metres or 600 metres.
Yep.
And guys are like, oh, that's not really long enough to do this. I'm like, well, just give it time. Like, let's take up
baby
what we've
steps.
got. And now this year we should be seeing comps go out to 12, 1300.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So give it time, and these things will extend. And ranges now are starting to be built, or at least planned out, in mind with what PRS brings to the table, which is awesome. I mean, given it's 4 years ago it started, that's incredibly quick rate.
Amazing.
Yeah. So give it 10 years and there'll be complete dedicated ranges for this style, and they'll be amazing. They'll be phenomenal.
That will be great for shooting in general, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So look forward to it, but it's going to take some time.
Hell yeah. And so have you been over to the US before our lockdown situation? Did you go to the US and learn from what they were doing over there?
We went in 2017.
Yep.
And 2019 as well. Try to do every 2 years, so I would have been in the US this year.
Yep.
But obviously not. We've been to a number of matches over there. 2019, I shot 3 matches over there. 2017, we went to the big finale, the PRS big finale, and just watched and held roles on. We were range officers or whatever they call it, and so we were spotting and all that sort of stuff. And so really good experience to learn, see how it's done with sort of the best in the world at the time.
Yeah.
And then fail miserably in terms of my shooting ability. But we still had a good time.
What, did you stress out? Did you because of the pressure? Or?
No, I'm not claiming to be a stunning shooter or anything along those lines.
It's that consistency though in this sport. That's the thing.
Consistency is everything. But I for me, what I really enjoy is actually running it and getting it together and getting it happening and all that sort of thing. I actually probably like you in terms of that business element of it, whether it be business or not with the club. Just the actual seeing more people shooting, that's really encouraging to me. And whether I shoot or not is I want to shoot a bit.
Yes.
But I'm not interested in competing and going through and trying to win the thing and go overseas and shoot that. We were talking with there's now an international federation getting set up.
Cool.
And a couple of the guys invited to come and help get that set up, and they just said, man, that sounds awesome. I'll just go over and help an RO, and we'll just do the admin side of things, and we'll just end up having a killer time in Spain.
Yeah, hell yeah. Because that's one thing that you really do enjoy. You setting up all the shoots instead of actually competing yourself. You're running them for the competitors. So
I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
And trying to break new ground. We really want to live stream one of the events. There's some challenges with live streaming with guns on various platforms.
Really?
There is. Yeah, you can't actually. So on YouTube specifically, you can't handle a firearm on a live stream.
What?
Yeah. Now that
in case it goes
you can
into a massacre style like the one in New Zealand
is what obviously that's where that rule has come out of. Now I'd love to be able to get an exception to say, hey, look, we're a legitimate sport,
so they can't,
and hopefully
Olympic shotgunners can't go on live TV.
You can't stream. No, on YouTube.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah. So that is where I'm hoping to get an exception that we can actually live stream it, or find some other method that we can actually live stream it out, because it's a fascinating sport to watch. Unlike probably many other shooting sports, it is really dynamic and there's lots of movement. And if you do it well, it's a really interesting sport.
It's really technical, because I remember watching one. They're on rooftop, and there was like car involved as well. So you had to go shoot through the window, and then there was like a part of the bonnet they had to be on. Mm-hmm. On this random angle, and it was just interesting watching them manipulate their body to actually get the right shot. And if they missed that first one, they had a whole other crack to see if that helped, and then they went back to the original one. But it's very interesting to watch. Yeah,
and because the stages that you shoot have sort of a story. Some of them have like a storyline. You do this, then that, and then follow through to this point. It is one of the more entertaining shooting sports to watch. It's not uncommon for one of the matches to have as many spectators, if not more, than there are shooters, which for a shooting sport at this level is phenomenal.
Insane. So, why do you think that is?
Because it's so interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because you get confirmation of the hits from someone yelling out.
Yep.
And so you can understand if they're doing well or not doing well. And so how you translate that across to video is going to be interesting and good, but there's plenty there. So really hope to do that. I think some of the guys in the US are going to be able to live stream some stuff this year.
Yep.
And more than, we've live streamed stuff just on the phone, just like, oh, here we are at the match, watch this type thing.
Yeah.
But actually to do it properly.
Yeah. And actually do the shots on point. So you're just pre-recording everything and then cutting it together after. Yeah,
at the moment we're doing we're doing a reasonable amount of media for it. But
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
so you've got PRS, and then you've got another couple of businesses. Off as an offshoot of those. What are that?
Almost the other. what
are
be
that?
So it's separate company. We run 2 websites, Scoped Out and Projectile Warehouse, and and Impact Dynamics, which is what the training business ended up being called until we had to change again. Some laws changed, and so we had to stop doing that. But then PRS kicked off and got me too busy with that sort of thing. So these are 2 websites. One specialises in reloading sort of stuff, which is Projectile Warehouse, and Scoped Out specialises in optics.
Cool.
And so they're sort of niches within the firearms industry where knowledge is really useful for them, but neither of them cross into dangerous goods or licensing sort of issues. So
you're not actually selling projectiles.
Selling projectiles,
not full ammunition.
Not full ammo. So cool. we can post stuff. We can do all that sort of gear. We don't cross those boundaries in terms of some more paperwork and admin and sort of gear. But they're also really they're areas that you can niche down into because knowledge is really critical for them.
Yeah.
So knowing what projectiles to sort of kick off with and that sort of stuff, or knowing what optics are best for that setup or what you want to achieve with it. They're really critical. So
cool.
And because we're specialised in those things, I guess we can provide hopefully a higher level of service on those particular products than perhaps you might get into your average walk-in, and particularly in the long range side of things, because we that's what we do day by day. We can provide sort of backed up experience in that.
So because it is. You're not dealing with any explosives as well. Like I know Shopify, we use our platform for a website. They are very strict in regards to what you can sell. Like when we're about to release our new limited edition Cannabis Pineapple Express, we uploaded it last year. Because we didn't have the formula up to spec, so we ended up not releasing it last year. But because we had the word cannabis as a draft item, they were going to shut our whole web store down within 48 hours if we didn't prove that it wasn't a real cannabis product. We've just knocked the word cannabis off it, and it's just Pineapple Express this year.
Okay.
But it's very strict in that. So how it's just because there's no black powder.
We start off with Shopify as well.
Yeah.
And so Projectile Warehouse I started many years ago, and Scoped Out I bought from a mate, lived around the corner, and he started, same sort of deal, started a small business, started growing really, really well. Too busy for him. He's actually got a real job, pays real money. And so
hey, it's a real job. You're creating jobs, mate.
That's right. Yeah, back then. And so he wanted to sort of either wind it back or pass it on. And so, sort of, it actually came at the time where the laws changed. We had to stop training. Worked in really well. But we started with Shopify for both of those. And I was always nervous. So we didn't sell anything that crossed the line, so to speak. But I had
because optics are absolutely fine.
Absolutely, theoretically, yes, absolutely. But people's understanding outside of the firearms industry of what exactly things are starts becoming very murky. And so when we were over to SHOT Show in the US, a mate of mine, his business, his website got that same message while he was on the plane to the US to say, remove your stuff from our server within 48 hours. Your website is being shut down.
So what did he have? Just ammo?
Firearms parts and bits and pieces like that. Yeah. And so, but that was actually when they changed their policy. Right, and then in enforced it straight away. So I was quite nervous, and I just didn't. So he was a gunsmith outside of that, so he had an income. Even if his web store was shut down, that was only a very small percentage of what he actually did.
Yep.
Whereas for me, it was everything, and so I couldn't afford to have that happen. So we eventually made the move to a Queensland-based business, actually, Nito.
Okay. I've never heard. What are they called?
Nito.
Yeah,
they're around here somewhere in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And so they, spoke with them, just first phone call. Right, this is what we deal with.
Yep.
We don't actually deal with anything firearms or anything but we deal with this stuff that many people, including PayPal, confuse as firearms directly related. And so they said, yep, no problems. We have X amount of customers who are already in that industry who do actually sell guns, and we these are the parameters they've got to fulfill. But we do it. I'm like, all right, sweet. Let's get this happening. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, so we're able to find a solution that hopefully is a long-term sort of option, because while we didn't cross anything, Shopify could have changed their policy overnight, and then we have no business effectively. Yeah, which would make things. We've got about 6,000 SKUs. It takes a while to put that to a new website.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. And if you can't access all that information in the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. It took long enough to move it across anyway when we had time. So during when COVID kicked in, that was my day. I was doing about 16 hours a day on the website and about an hour and a half for our live stream. And that was my life.
Wow.
For however many months that was.
So how are you marketing your businesses in this space?
We are entirely social media driven.
Yep.
And we're entirely organic social media driven, because we can't pay for advertising.
Yep.
But I guess in theory, very few of our competitors can pay for advertising. So it comes down to quality of content and quantity of content, is being able to produce videos, photos, interesting things, interesting engagement on a regular basis. We've never paid for print advertising.
Yep. We
had a little bit of like banners on websites, and it was the banner side of things was okay, but that $300 for that month or something like that, I can throw. We've got a videographer now. I can throw that at him. He could create a couple of pieces of content, and like it happened this week, we go viral on TikTok with 350,000 views. Yeah, I think that's that could be more useful than being on a particular website.
100%.
Yeah.
You should have seen this video that Rusty showed me before we got started. It was literally him opening up. Well, it wasn't even you. It was a hand. But it was a hand opening up an ammo box, and then transitioning
to the range
to the range, and then closing the ammo box with ammo in it.
Yeah,
and it got 350,000 views.
Cool transition, was it?
It was a cool transition. Okay. I like to think the transition looked all right.
Yeah, it'll show you. It's bizarre.
It's just
I was like, it doesn't show anything about the business. It's just like opening a box, showing the box. 350,000 people saw it. Yeah. And then how many followers?
But it went from 70 followers to 1,200 in like 3 days.
Yeah.
And so, look, TikTok, I have no strategy for TikTok apart from experimenting at the moment.
Yeah. Well, at least you're on it.
But we're doing it. Yeah. That's it.
We're on TikTok as well, but we haven't done it in dances yet.
Yeah, I guess
we've just done some.
I guess that's what this morning's for, isn't it? That's what the real reason I'm here.
TikTok
dancing power.
No. Well, this is the first podcast we've ever done in the morning.
You know where
you
should go? You should go with a beard dance, a beard stroke related dance. I'm sure you could find some piece of music where a beard stroke.
Beard stroking.
It's so niche.
So niche.
Niche to every single man who has a beard.
That's on I think there's some OnlyFans channels that you can do that with.
I
had a shit ton more money.
For all this gear? It all makes sense now.
It is. OnlyFans actually could even be an option for you guys, because it's paid content. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
We had a Patreon.
We had Patreon.
But
even they cracked down on everything.
We never suffered anything from them. But we had Patreon. But we actually stopped our Patreon because it actually Patreon was awesome. Our supporters were phenomenal, and that little bit of extra income allowed us to get to the point where we buy cameras and this and that, and it was really good.
Yeah.
But we felt we could deliver better. Sort of not taking that resource there. I guess it didn't hit that critical mass of having enough where it could justify providing it all the extra content and the time to make that. And also it was that I perhaps had never embraced it super well. And so the guys who were there were just, super generous. So we've asked, if they want to support us, buy T-shirts. We were going to go down that path.
The value add stuff,
and value add and look after them a bit more in that regard. And just we also wanted to sort of double or triple our content output.
Yeah.
And having like a 24-hour delay on putting a video up to then put a video up the next day, like early for Patreon guys, and then you'd have videos where like our timing's critical, so we just put it up, and then we're not actually doing what we said to the Patrons. We'd give them early access. And like, you know what, we're not really fulfilling our end of the deal. Appreciate what you guys have done. Yeah. And so all the guys who are on top tiers, we all we've got their details to send them T-shirts when we get them printed and all that sort of stuff to try and look after them.
Yep.
So Patreon was never quite. Maybe that's why I didn't embrace it, because it never sat really well for me.
Yeah, we being ethical.
Yeah, just being like, just not sure. Like, if we were killing it on Patreon, then cool, but we weren't, and always didn't quite sit super well. What
made you do Patreon versus trying to get revenue through like YouTube ads? Because of that Firearm category.
Firearms.
Can you monetize?
Yeah, so our main YouTube channel, which is Impact Dynamics, is monetized.
Yep.
It's not uncommon for a video to be demonetized
very
quickly. So we don't that probably earns around $100 a month.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe. So and we put a lot more into it than that.
Yes.
And it's growing, it's going well, but we also that content is much more pillar content, so we will grab snippets out and start feeding it out to everywhere, and screenshots and stuff like that. So but we've really used Impact Dynamics as a training ground for being able to create content, learning how to do it and what works. So I did a video where I said, we sent a team over to the US for the PRS finale, and I did a video where I sat in front of camera for 5.5 hours, and the guys who were going were Luke, George, and Ash, and so I sat and said, go George, go Luke, go Ash for 5.5 hours, 10,000 times.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. But that video got a lot of views, got a lot of engagement. My goal was that the US guys would all know their names by the time they got over there, and apparently it did work out. A lot of US crew knew who they were before they came.
Yep.
So that was cool. Plus, it was also experimenting, just seeing how a video like that, stupid video, would go. And I had a bunch of guests come in and join me, and there was a club shooting a match that they all video called in and did the same thing, and so it was really cool. It was interesting to do, and I think. But the other thing is that the lads who were going, like, one of them brought it up and showed his missus. He's like, check this video out, and he's like, he does this for 5 minutes, and she looks at it and goes, that's 5 hours.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? It's just
ludicrous.
But anyway, just stuff like that. And then we had these challenge videos. So we're just about to release our second one.
Explain to everyone what the challenge video is, because it's a pretty good concept for marketing.
The first one, it's just good fun, isn't it? The first one we did was a box to 1,000 challenge. So we had a particular brand of scope that we were still dealing with called Falcon, and so we put one of them up for the challenge. And so the
as a giveaway,
So the 4 guys who were entering the challenge were sort of all had some sort of social media presence, a couple of businesses, a couple of other YouTube channels, and so they would come out, would read them out the rules. There was a target at 1,000 meters away, and they had to take their scopes off of their guns, mount one of these scopes, and then hit a 1,000-meter target.
Yeah, wow!
And they had 10 rounds to do it in, and then for any round they used beyond that, they had to suffer a 2-minute penalty. So they'd shoot and then wait for 2 minutes between each round.
Yeah.
And so now for guys who really know what they're doing, the challenge is quite okay. You can achieve that. For those guys who limited in their shooting knowledge, it seems impossible.
Yeah, that's what it'd be like for me. Yeah. Zero even in the scope out of that range. Holy shit!
Because a lot of guys think about using 30 or 40 rounds just to zero at 100 meters, and so there all was.
Some dudes do it in 3.
Yeah, and a few guys did.
Yeah.
And that's where it was a good challenge. So the guys would it's all on camera. Of course, it's all played up a lot. Rather than okay, guys, here's your scope. They all had a starting line, and the scopes were at a table, 30 meters away, and there was a couple of obstacles in the way.
Like a motorbike start,
had to jump off and jump over these obstacles, and one of the guys smacked me in the balls and on the starting line, and so they'd all do this and grab that, and then they're fighting over rings and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, I got over there, and it was really good fun. And then and so that video we put together and went to about 1.3 million people on Facebook.
Really?
Phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was huge reach. Really, it wasn't super technical in the details info, but it was really entertaining. There was memes and gags and jokes and all that sort of stuff in there. So we filmed the second one. The second one hopefully will go out in about a month or so.
Yep.
And this one to give you a sneak peek is called the Centurion Challenge. Yeah. So you've got 100 rounds to shoot. You've got 100 minutes to do it. I mean, you may take some origins from a drinking game, but you can't shoot. You've got to shoot 1 round per minute. You can't shoot more than that. You can't do 10.
Oh wow!
And then bank it for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Every single minute you got to shoot.
Wow!
And so the guys, we did this challenge a number of years ago just with some mates to try it out as a concept. It was really good fun, but none of us got more than about 30 because you're lying down, and so your back's starting to seize up, because we're old and injured. And your concentration level has to be really high because it's not necessarily a massive target at 200. Like you sit down to put 5 shots onto that target, all the guys there would have hit it straight away. Yeah. No dramas at all. But when you're under this pressure, like you can't take that second shot. You've got to wait, and then the wind picks up, and then old mate's just shot his one right next to you. He's like a half a metre away from you, pre-COVID, half a metre away from you, and then that's throwing you off your game a little bit, and then you've got to identify which target's yours, not shoot someone else's target. It actually becomes quite a challenging thing.
Yeah, wow.
And then we decided to do it on a day that was 46 degrees.
Excellent. So you're getting cooked as well.
Mirage was brilliant, and it was... it didn't go so well on that. But anyway, so that's a really good fun video.
What did that do for your business? Like, because getting 1.3 million eyes on a piece of content is huge. Yeah,
so I think with that first one, we talked about the scope, but we were trying to get that balance of like, it's not a super pushy video, but I think we underdid it.
Yeah. Right?
So and the history...
What do you mean by that?
I don't think we talked about the product enough. I don't think we reflected on it enough. We sort of say, hey, you guys are using this scope from this brand, and then moved on.
Yep.
And I think it was a good representation of the scope. The scope's worked a treat. But I believe we sold a few because of it.
Yep.
But I don't think we got the balance wrong. There's like the balance where you can push too far one way, where you can be like all product, all just buy this thing, and this is the only reason we're doing the video, to just not even mentioning the product.
Yeah.
And we were probably a little bit closer to not even mentioning the product enough. To be fair, we had planned another cameraman on the day rather than just me, and so therefore I was actually going to spend a little bit of time in front of the camera during it rather than just the intro.
Yeah.
And we were going to take a moment to actually run through the scope in a little bit more detail. So the plan was there. He bailed in the morning.
Yeah.
We sort of just had to get it done, and I was there for the intro. I did like the rules, and then I disappear.
Yeah,
I just disappear for the video. And
that's right. At least you got it out. Most people don't even do that.
No, this is true.
Problem.
This is true. So this one we've done, like there's a segment in the video that's like the cliffhanger. Like there's a question about whether a guy hit a particular target.
Yep.
And he's currently in the lead, but maybe he isn't. And at that point, we break the video. We go into a little plug about one of the businesses, the business that sponsored it. So hopefully we've retained people's attention. They're watching. This is like 8 minutes into the video, so it's it's engaging so far. And we talk a little about it. We relate it to what the guys are doing on the day, so people can see the connection.
A lot of education in it, I still think, because people are still learning about the sport.
And so then we go down and complete the rest of the video. So we will see whether or not it's but I'm using my brands for this stuff, and if they work, then fantastic, and if they don't, well, I've only got myself to blame. They're good videos to go. And they still build the Impact Dynamics brand. But hopefully, if we see a good return on it, it makes it worthwhile. Then we might have another brand that comes up with it. Like we come up with a cool. We're sitting on about 30 or 40 concepts of these things, and we find the right brand to match the most sensible sort of thing. So there's one I want to do where we are doing a camping challenge. So you got teams of 3, and you've got to set up camp. And in these things, particularly because this one's not going to have any firearms, so sabotage is highly recommended, and sort of underhanded dealings and all that sort of gear. But
like a mini Survivor.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
And so I expect one of the tents will end up on fire. Is what I suspect will happen. But I think like that'll end up with the way you finish your challenge after setting up all the things to the requirements, you build a fire, and then you do a cup of coffee, and we'll get a coffee sponsor on board for it.
Yeah,
so
cool.
So one, it makes sense. Like, it's not just like shoved into the it's not an unrecognized brand.
Yeah, a part of those everyday scenarios that's going to happen with the sport or that following as well.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be good. Plus, they're fun to watch. They're fun to shoot. They're sort of fun to edit, but it's not my problem anymore. So anyway,
so I'm going to drag you into the spot where you don't like talking about, which is gun politics in Australia and over in America as well, because there's some pretty interesting stuff happening around the world at the moment with firearms.
Yeah,
so
there always is.
In Australia as well, like we were talking earlier with New South Wales, there's no clubs that do PRS down there because you can't have a military-looking firearm.
Yeah,
because it's way more dangerous than a wooden-handled, wooden stock firearm.
Yeah, the appearance side of things is messy. Yeah, and they attempted to get it up and running in SA, and
did they?
I think one of the SSAA guys there spent some time with them, just like showing logically how
educating.
Educating. Like it's a flawed way of doing it because there's no actual sense to it.
No.
In New South Wales, look, there is some real promises, some clubs underway.
Yeah, okay.
So things are looking good. It's the reason it's not a matter of like, oh, there's no scary looking black gun, so we can't run this. Yeah. Mate, I've got a rainbow painted gun.
Yeah.
It's not about the colour of it. We can just change the colour of guns.
True.
And so, but there is there's some challenging times there, but they look like they will get better in the coming months.
Amazing.
So, we've and that's probably been new information in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
Because I know there's especially in North Queensland, like they snuck through 2 years ago the handgun licenses for rural farmers and stuff. And the first week it was employed, there was a woman who got hacked to death by a pig who would normally run a sidearm.
Oh, right.
And then, we didn't know about that. And it's like, you're making rules for bloody people you have no idea about. And that was
it's like in the real world.
Correct. That's why North Queensland want to split.
Them, WA.
Yeah, I know, right? WA is another country anyway.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So where do you see firearms in the sport going in Australia over the next couple of years? Because there seems to be some pretty progressive stuff happening. Yeah,
I think the sport is growing. Like from a numbers point of view, from a business point of view, the sport is growing, which is awesome. And like you said that it's not my favourite topic to talk about. I'm not super educated. I usually know what's going on, but I'm also my strategy is to get more people shooting.
Yes.
And I really believe that we used to run in parallel to our training, we used to run like, come and shoot sort of stuff. So, like buck shows and this and that. And I regularly had people come down who, were part of a buck show or a hens party or something along those lines, or a birthday or something. And they were like, "Oh no, I'm not going to shoot." I'm like, that's cool, no sweat. That's no dramas at all. I'm not going to force anyone
until
to do
they
anything.
pull the trigger and feel out how powerful it is.
And but we there was a girl recently who came out to our club, and she was really unsure about it. She was almost in tears and sort of got behind the gun and sort of had without touching it yet, but sort of had a bit of a panic attack about it. Just got really nervous and worked up about it.
Wow.
And the guy putting her through was just trying to do the best thing he knew and that sort of thing, but perhaps hadn't done it many times before. Yeah. So she came off the line really nervous, and I walked up to her. I said, "Look, take some time to calm down. Look, I would have put through maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people through on their first shooting experience."
Yep. That's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot.
Give me, or maybe not their first, but anyway, through a shooting experience.
Yeah.
And so, but many of them were probably 70, 60%.
Yep.
I said, take some time to calm down. If you're happy to try again, I promise you it's going to go extremely well and you're going to be stoked. And fortunate enough for her, she said, okay, all right. So she took some time to calm down. We edged out. There was a lot of people around, so we edged off to a bench on the side, got there, just said, ignore everyone else, right? And then just talked her through it really carefully before we got anywhere near a trigger, showed her how everything works, put the bags sort of under her arm and all that sort of stuff. And she shot, and big smile, really enjoyed it, shot again. And I think she had maybe 5 rounds. She could have had 10. And she said, look, I'm happy. I've done.
Yeah, I've done it now.
I've had enough. I'm great. This is good. Thank you so much. And I was stoked from where she was to where she.
That positive experience.
And I've had people come out who've had negative. They've been shot at in some terribly unfortunate circumstance.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they've come out with the intention of like trying to overcome that fear, which is amazing of them.
Yeah.
And so again, spending time with them, just talking about like letting them watch how we handle the firearms because we're ultra safe with it, and talk like explaining how the things work and
that's
why.
the biggest thing, that education on it.
Yeah,
because I remember the first time I bought a firearm home, my mum and my sister were crying.
Yep.
Literally, they were crying in the house. They're like, "Oh my God, you got a gun in the house," and like, so dangerous. We're all gonna die. I'm like, well, no, you're not. So I'm going to show you how to use it now. Yeah. And I ran them through I showed them how to cycle a bolt, looked at the scope. Now my sister's got like 10 firearms. She's married to a US Navy officer over in the US. But like she's a big advocate now, and not for hunting because she's a pescatarian, but for the sport of shooting downrange and self-defense in the US. So but it's amazing how it shifts once you get educated, because it's not a scary murder mystery weapon that's from a TV show. Yeah,
like the Terminator. Exactly. It becomes a very you can see that
it's a tool.
You can see the positives. You can see how it works. You can see, of course, you can use you can use all sorts of things in a really negative way. Yeah, but you can also choose to use it really positively, and that's really encouraging when people do that. So that in terms of my strategy for how how the sport grows is literally just give people really positive experience with it. Show them show them how to use these things safely and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Build a real positive experience around it. So when they come out to our club, and this is what I'm really proud of our club, where if you were like, oh, I've never shot before, if Haydos wants to, he's like, oh, I've never shot before, and I want to go out and do it, I can be like, mate, just go down there, they will take care of you, and you will walk away with a massive smile on your face, and knowing like the guys there they're not grumpy about it. They're not like, oh, you have to have this brand of gun, otherwise no one takes this. No, just mate, whatever you've got.
That's what I found was great about the PRS community, because I remember I was a part of some other gun clubs, and I'd be at the range, and then these old fuckers just like, oh, you get up the other end of the range, it's too big of a caliber, I need my hearing protection. We're like, yes, you should have your hearing protection in. Yeah, you should. And you're meant to be encouraging people to be able to have fun and enjoy this target shooting, because how else are you going to continue the sport?
Absolutely. That's a sport. That's a challenge that is faced by many sports. Yeah. Especially more niche sports, is actually encouraging new members and that sort of gear. And we've got the more significant barrier in the firearms world. One, stigma about it. Yep. And two, all the licensing you have to go through. Yeah. But
which I think is good. I think Australia's got the best laws in the world for it. I think it actually should be harder to get it, but once you get it, you should be able to use anything. That's my rule on it.
The licensing process, there's nothing's perfect, and so things could certainly be improved upon. But having the licensing process is what we go through, and it gives you some confidence that person is checked out. Yep. And we've had a couple of people who have applied for our club and perhaps have not made it through that process.
Yeah, which is great.
Actually encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
which is good, and so you. Yeah, but there are plenty of restrictions that we could get into, but we're just going to get very disappointed about it all. Yeah, which that's another discussion. But I think that's one of the things that the PRS side of stuff has become so popular, as opposed to 3-gun, is because the guns that we use are the same guns that the guys in the US, the guys in New Zealand, the guys in South Africa, Sweden, UK, and now 30-something countries. They're very, very similar. Like the only thing that we probably can't access that many of those other guys can is the suppressors.
Yes, which is ridiculous. We'll go into that next.
Ridiculous. But the suppressors is probably the only piece of equipment that we can't use. And to be fair, suppressors are not like used by everyone in those other countries at these competitions.
Well, it's compulsory in Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because even for hunting.
Yeah, okay.
It's preferred.
Yeah, it's certainly many places are preferred. But from a competition point of view, a lot of guys still favour muzzle brakes because it has a better effect on the gun.
Do you want to break that down, the difference between a suppressor and a muzzle brake? Because I think that's a huge difference.
Yeah, so they're both items that screw on.
It's not a silencer like James Bond.
They're both items that screw onto the end of the barrel. A muzzle brake has sort of ports that direct the blast into multiple directions. So rather than understand physics, your blast goes forward, your gun jumps back. Whereas if some of that blast is diverted sideways, it sort of cancels itself out. It doesn't jump back as much. Someone can explain that with much more technical terms than I can.
Keeping you on target, essentially.
Exactly right. Yeah. So your gun doesn't jump around so much. A suppressor has does an element of that, but rather than sort of porting out to the side, it ports it into a larger sort of area, and then it's a slower release of that gas forward that reduces or changes the signature of the noise. So it's a longer noise but much lower pitch noise. And not lower
it's still loud though. This is what people think. It's fucking loud.
It's still loud depending on the gun. It
but
reduces
just not breaking your
the
ears.
noise. But like you will often see guys still running hearing protection on suppressors.
Yeah, unless you're running a 22.
Yeah, unless you're running small stuff. And so that's not uncommon. And so they both have similar effects on the gun, but muzzle brake will generally drop that recoil down even further than a suppressor. And then people talk about suppressors being easy to tune for the loads and bits and pieces. These are all intricacies, but that's probably the one item that we don't run that other countries can.
Yeah, because I think that unless you're a commercial shooter, you can then access semi-automatic plus suppression.
Yes,
for your all it is for your health. It's not got anything to do with being James Bond and stalking around and snipering off people, because it's not.
No, it's not. They still have a fair noise to it.
Yeah, it's got a good crack.
Range.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, from a health and safety, like we would love to be able to access them on a range, because it would reduce the noise pollution outside of that range.
Yep.
And also from a health and safety point of view, that would be fantastic.
100%.
Because then your requirements for your earmuffs are not maybe as extreme as they are currently. A lot of guys double plug, so they put a plug in and then also earmuffs on it.
Yeah, wow.
As well, to just kill that noise. And so the need to do that would be gone. That single earmuffs, or in some like a 6 mil, it's probably a bearable noise. But as you 308, still pretty loud.
Yes.
Yeah, shot it suppressed a bit in the US, and it's
I saw a internal suppressed barrel out of the US, which
it's another way of doing it. Yeah,
looked amazing.
Yeah.
So, and it was silent. Because it was pretty much most of the barrel.
Well, it would have been 22.
No, it was 308.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a 308, and it just looked like a giant heavy barrel.
Wow. Okay.
And you would never ever know.
Yeah.
Like if you went over there and did a barrel swap and brought it back.
Yeah. Right.
No one would know. It is ludicrous, and the difference it made, you literally didn't need hearing protection at all.
Yeah.
On a 308, it was ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
just that pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Because that's the thing, is you break the sound barrier, you're going to always, no matter what you do, you're always going to get that pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always a signature of the noise.
Exactly.
Much more favourable to your ears.
So what do you think of what's going on in the US at the moment with Mr. Biden potentially going to break the Second Amendment and be the first person in history to...
Can't say I'm across it super well.
Yeah. What have you heard?
I just, they want us to put some sort of plan in place.
Executive order.
That's the word.
Yeah.
And really limit it. And it just, I don't know, it's not.
He can barely speak at the moment. I'm waiting for more news to come out of him. Since Trump's left, there's like no news at all at the US.
But it's gone very quiet, hasn't it?
Because he can't speak by himself.
Yeah.
What's the order that he's...
So he is meant to be signing an executive order that changes gun legislation, which is going to break the...
What is it?
Essentially, I haven't.
You don't know.
I've just read top line on it.
Yeah, okay.
But it's meant to be happening next 2 weeks, and it's meant to be like against the Second Amendment.
What's the Second Amendment?
So the right to bear arms.
What's the first one?
Free speech.
Yeah.
What's the third one?
I have no.
Lost interest by this point.
So, but it's a big uproar, and it was so funny because during the middle of COVID, I think the Democrats had one of the largest new purchases of firearms ever because during COVID, ammunition went through the roof. Like they couldn't even keep up.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about if the new administration come in, then they'd ban it as well. But with what's going on in the US in the change of administration, what impacts has that had on the Australian shooting scene, like in regards to accessibility of ammunition, firearms, because there was so much of a demand in the US, and they get preference, and that's where most of them are made.
Yeah. So we have this like 4-year cycle that lines up obviously with the presidential election, and so every 4 years supply gets challenging, right? So that
Barack's was the biggest selling of all time.
Yeah, that's right. It happens every 4 years, and a lot of guys in the gun industry are like, oh, why is stuff so hard to get? And you're like, literally you can set your clock by your watch by it. If every 4 years there becomes this demand. Same thing we see like red dots, like Chinese made red dot optics, like 6 to 8 weeks after Chinese New Year, we see this delay. So these are pretty predictable things that you see happen. However, this time around we had COVID leading into a presidential election, so the whole supply became a lot earlier, and then of course Trump versus Biden was very, was even more
and Black Lives Matter thrown in there as well.
Yeah, it was even more polarizing with it. So you had these multiple sort of build-ups that created this fair vacuum of supply, and so a lot of the components for reloading, a lot of the even optics and everything is difficult to get. I'm starting to see, just monitoring Facebook pages and groups and stuff like that in the US, things are starting to become a little better over there. But their pricing was just going through the roof for some of the stuff they were paying, ammo and all that sort of gear, just off the charts.
Yeah, I bought it instead of gold.
yeah, I'm not surprised.
Everyone was buying toilet paper. I just bought ammunition.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure our accountant said that was the best.
Yeah,
that was one
of
the best investments on our podcast.
Definitely.
It definitely happened. And so now we're in a state like, so we sell projectiles is one of the biggest things we do, and guys are ringing up going, can I get projectiles? I'm like, well, you probably can't get your first choice. You might not be able to get your second, but I definitely can get you something.
Yeah.
And so we're at that point now where we still got supply, but a lot of the, we might land 50 boxes of a particular projectile that's popular, and 3 days later it's gone. And normally those 50 boxes would maybe last us a month.
Yeah, wow.
Something on those lines.
Have you had to adjust your price for that?
I haven't.
No.
I have honestly just left my prices as they are,
That's
in
good.
line with it.
Yeah. Long-term customer value
exactly.
outlook,
Yeah. Everything we try and everything we do is long-term. So we raise our prices obviously if our supply price goes up, or freight's affected a few, so there might be a couple of price rises that have, because freight has gone up significantly from internationally, because there's the lack of flights. But in terms of the actual product price, they're the same. Occasionally I'll get an email from someone saying, "Oh, you're price gouging. This is like twice the price of what it should be," and then you reply and go, "Hey man, do you realize we're in Australia and this is Australian dollars?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, really sorry." Yeah.
We had that all during COVID, and we're like, "Yeah, do you know this is all made at our factory in Brisbane with Australian workers paid over award rates?"
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, yeah. It's not cheap here, but that's what we're gonna do.
So it's been interesting with COVID. COVID's been, we went from me in my shed.
Yes.
And then COVID kicked in, and like you, just made some changes and bits and pieces, and we now, sort of got a team of four of us, or maybe 5 if you count one of them.
So COVID helped your business.
COVID did help my business, but also it also helped me mentally to reframe.
Okay. How so?
When COVID kicked in, I thought that people would make logical decisions.
Yeah.
How wrong I was. But I thought people would make logical decisions and would spend money on food, shelter, like the core essentials, and not buy anything outside of that.
But instead they bought toilet paper.
Instead they bought toilet paper. Well, I guess that counts as essential. But they also, they spent, and perhaps there was not as many job losses as predicted. So people had jobs and obviously some people didn't, and that was terrible, and hospitality and that sort of stuff sucked to be in. But for many others, they weren't travelling, they weren't shooting PRS matches, they weren't going overseas, they were stuck at home. They may as well buy new gear. And so I resigned myself to the fact that within 3 weeks, I probably wouldn't have a business anymore.
Yeah, wow.
When we sort of went into that lockdown, I'm like, all right, we're going to be out of business, and just, so I'm like, all right, well, I'm not too bad at making videos. Maybe I could pursue that. I'll practice. I'll just keep making videos and practice and go down that pathway. Who knows? And so because I had this sort of decision that, like, it didn't matter what I did now, we were going to go out of business. So I could try everything. So we did. We just just threw everything against the wall.
Yep.
And we started the live show, so every night to sort of build that community up. And then we just got really aggressive on our pricing, really aggressive on supply and that sort of gear. And then we started selling more. And so every dollar, my wife was like, "Oh, we should probably put some money aside for food and this and that." I'm like, "No, every dollar is going back into stock. Like I'm just going to ride this wave as long as we can." We spent our costs, like I cancelled every subscription we had except for Netflix, but we cancelled everything else. And so we brought our costs down as low as we possibly could get them. We put our home loan on deferment.
Wow.
And
So you went all in.
All in. And I said, well, if we're going to be out of business, at least we
Had to crack.
tried hard. And so there was that resolve of like, I don't care what we do. We're going to try everything.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it did. Amazingly, it did. There was a downturn where there was a point where they actually shut gun shops in 3 states.
Yes.
Which
I remember that.
As a principal, I was like, I was against that very much so. I have to say it did help us. We had a bunch of new customers discover us.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we were still
Why did they do that?
Yeah, there is much. I don't know why, but I guess because firearms are
didn't
a
they
target.
say that it was like for essential workers only because I got in before and I bought a shit ton of ammo.
Yeah,
but like 2 weeks later they're like, oh yeah.
Different states claim different things.
Yeah.
I think Victoria sort of said, oh, there's this big spike in guns,
farmers. And
we wanted to clarify that. There was a domestic violence claim in Queensland, but they left bottle shops open. There was there was all these there was all these reasons.
You're allowed to get drugged and fucked up and bash the shit out of someone with your hands,
but you can't go through a 30-day process to buy a gun.
And do a sport.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't do
the sport
anything
at the time. But, so anyway, there was these stupid reasons given. Yeah. Anyway, I guess the only upshot that we found was that we were we gained a bunch of new customers.
Cool.
So it was bittersweet. Like if I got to make that decision, I would leave all those gun shops open.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we did gain a little bit from there, and then we just got really aggressive. We did 2 new websites for both of them, and that certainly helped. We fixed all the many of the problems that we disliked about the previous ones, especially the one I bought and inherited and didn't involve with setting up. So we fixed a bunch of that, and then we just went aggressive and getting hard on it, and away we went. We had to move out. Literally, I took my wife into the shed, opened the shed. I'm like, I cannot move in here anymore. We have
That's a good way
so
to be.
much stock, and literally could not I couldn't pack orders. Like I'd be packing an order. And I on a shelf, so the item is where you are, and I've got all this stock in the way, so I'd have to pull all this stock out to go and get the item right at the back of the shelf and put it
not
all
efficient.
Away. Very inefficient, and so
you got to do that there. I remember because I got lucky to spend some time with Jordan Belfort at the Wolf of Wall Street before he was famous with his movie. But literally one of the things he said was until you are like stacked to the wall, do not get a new premise. Like you just pack it out until you can't ever move. And I remember walking into my first warehouse, which was a level 55 apartment. And I lived in the ensuite, and then everything else was with the lab and the spare room, an office out there in the kitchen, and everyone worked from there. I had like 6 staff in there at the time. And we had to walk in the front door and until literally had to slide down the front door sideways, and I went, no, we can't do this anymore. And that was when we went to our first warehouse properly. So, and now we're in 400 squares and we're about to move out again. So
it's huge.
It's exciting though to see that progression as well. So what's the plan for the next couple of months or next 2 years for Impact and PRS?
Yeah, so for PRS, I guess we want to build it to a few more competitions. We want to be represented in every state. We want to have a competition so that everyone, wherever you live, you can get, I guess, almost wherever you live, within
in main metropolitan
metro, can get to a match within sort of 4 or 5 hours comfortably in every state. And then like Queensland, New South, Victoria can all get there are a couple of matches in each of those states, and so that you might have to travel to be able to qualify for the series because you need to shoot at least 2 matches. But you will not. That's not like someone in Perth at the moment. For them, like the 2 closest matches are probably SA matches. It's not it's not easy for them to do. So be able to get them at least a match over there, so they just travel for one. So that's one of the goals for PRS, and then really hook up the international side of things, which is under development. And then for the other businesses, I guess it is really we want to bring on more products and be able to grow our offering. And whether or not we have a retail shop, that's something that we have
Playing
talked
around
about. But we'd probably, at this stage, no, it's not our strength. Our strength is really sort of being able to deliver stuff online, that sort of gear. So we will see. We're really enjoying doing the social media marketing side of things.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoying
Yeah,
doing
you guys are doing a good job of it at the moment.
Yeah. Cheers, man. And we've got a videographer on who is really like delving down that path as well with me. And so we will see how that all goes. That might be a pathway that we develop further because we're doing a lot more of that for the PRS side of stuff as well. So yeah, I don't know. We've got all sorts of ideas. And we probably keep our same approach. Just do stuff and see what works.
Man, that's
worked so far.
Most people don't do anything, so kudos to you, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for popping in. I think it's about time to wrap up.
Yeah.
But pleasure having you on. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you on social?
Yeah, for me personally, Impact Rusty is on most things. For TikTok is where I'm actually spending most of my time at the moment, embarrassingly. No dances yet, but who knows? It depends on how strong your gin is, I guess.
Yeah.
And Instagram as well for there. But you can probably the brand to watch is Impact Dynamics.
Yep. Cool.
If you want to see all the sort of bigger,
and that's all education and
fun
and videos of PRS, etc.
All sorts of stuff there. You can link out to everything else from there. So
amazing. Make sure you check it out, guys. I'm excited to get involved with PRS as well. And if you got any questions, hit them in the comment below. But thanks so much, Rusty.
Awesome, man.
Talk to you soon.
Worries. Cheers.